So I'm going to start by saying that this video has gone through many iterations. On my last video, I made it sound like this was going to be a bit of a part 2 to that one. Well, I threw that idea right out the window because now this video is going to be part 1 of a brief 2-part series about the absolute spookiest day of all. So sit back and let me explain to you why it is we do what we do every year and how it all started. So imagine something with me. It's 2,000 years ago. You live somewhere in what is now Ireland, the UK, northern France. A great summer has just passed and the harvest is complete. It's October 31st and the work and the year are drawing to a close. All that lies in front of you is the promise of a cold, dark winter. It's a time of year that reminds many that not everyone is going to make it to the spring. So what do you do when such a somber and unstoppable realization sets in?
Hey bud, let's party.
You see, at the end of each year, the Celtic people believed the barriers between our world and the afterlife weakened and that ghosts returned to the earth. These spirits were thought to damage crops and cause general mayhem. But to honor the event of the weakened barrier, the Druids would make huge sacred bonfires and a celebration by this name. Alright, say it with me everyone, Samhain. Yep, that is really how you say it. And I'll have you know that this article is from the history website, so the information is 100% aliens. This page says that they would burn crops and animals in sacrifice, and that they would wear animal hides and heads during the celebration, which is pretty damn metal to be honest. But at the end of the festivities, after all the food and the animals were burned and they put out the fires, they would head home to light their hearths in order to gain protection for the winter. Now moving forward a little bit, the area that the Celts lived in changed hands many times over the years. By 609 AD, Christianity, and more specifically Catholicism, had taken its hold. A celebratory feast for Christian martyrs called All-Martyrs Day took place every year in May until Pope Gregory III changed the holiday to All Saints Day and moved it to November 1st. Now, I know it's feeling like a history class right now, but this is going somewhere, I promise. Because by the 9th century, Christianity and some of the old Celtic traditions were blending. It is believed that the church wasn't a huge fan of this blending, so they created All Souls Day on November 2nd. This was a day to honor the dead and was meant to replace the Celtic festivals with something more church-sanctioned. People dressed up as saints, angels, and devils, and similarly to Samhain, had big bonfires and even parades.
This was also a day when the poor would beg for food from the celebrating people. They would give the poor soul cakes in exchange for prayers for their dead family members. And this actually would end up being the early stages of what we know today as trick-or-treating. Obviously, this has changed because technically it doesn't involve begging in the streets, but the core concept was there.
So finally here we are, the reason this was all so important. Because November 1st, All Saints Day was also known by another name. It was referred to as All-Hallows or All-Hallowsmas. That would make October 31st All-Hallows Eve, which may sound familiar because it was these 3 days that would eventually morph into what we know today as Halloween. So we know how it started and we know how it got its name, but how did it get to America? Well, to no one's surprise, it was the immigrants to the New World that brought these traditions with them.
Except the Puritans?
Who hated fun and celebration and themselves. For this reason, only general fall celebrations are held in the southern colonies. They would share stories of the dead, tell fortunes, and sing and dance. But across the ocean, the potato famine hit Ireland, and floods of people immigrated to America and actually helped popularize the Halloween celebration all over the nation. This is when people began to reincorporate the dressing up aspect of Halloween.
Well, we've come a long way from the Celtic traditions, and in part 2, I'm going to cover how the holiday made the change from big harvest festivals to localized neighborhood parties,
and finally the modernization of Halloween and how we spend our time on the creepiest day of the year. So I hope you guys enjoyed my little Halloween history story. I'll see you in part 2 and have a great October, everybody.